Hi, my name's Billie and I'm a teaching artist with LACMA, and today we're going to do an art making project using materials that you can hopefully find around your house. So we're going to be creating a miniature stained glass window that you can see a little example of here. The materials that you're going to need for this are some regular clear tape. You can use masking tape or something else as well if you don't have clear tape. A pair of scissors, a clear plastic sandwich bag, or some other kind of clear plastic that you might have around the house, but you don't want anything much bigger than this, so clear plastic like this. Some cardstock, so it needs to be a little thicker than paper. I just used some poster board that I had lying around, which works just fine. Then if you have permission from the owner and if you have some at home, we're going to be using some nail polishes. So this goes well onto the plastic, but because it's a little toxic, you do need permission and also adult supervision, so nail polishes. If you don't have any nail polishes or you don't have permission, then some permanent markers also work. That also works on plastic. So I have here some different colours of permanent marker, but even if you only have black, you can still do some fun things with this project. So, permanent markers. Since we're going to be using those things, I just have a couple of safety tips before we get started. You know, anytime you're painting or especially using permanent marker, you should put a covering down. So I've just put a piece of paper, scrap newspaper, something like that to protect my table or protect your desk. Also, because we're using either permanent marker or nail polish, they are toxic. They kind of have a strong smell. So you want to be in a well-ventilated area. Even though we're only using small little bits of them, it's important to be in a well-ventilated area. So before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit what inspired this project. There are two stained glass windows that are in LACMA's collection. If you go online, you can see that LACMA actually has a lot of stained glass windows in their collection, but these two kind of caught my eye. The first one is from, I think, the 16th or 15th century and represents Saint Hippolytus, who was a thinker and theorist and intellectual. So he's often shown holding a book, which he is in this stained glass window. So often, you know, these artworks would use simple shapes, symbols to kind of tell a story of sorts. The second artwork in LACMA's collection is called The Adoration of the Magi, and that stained glass window has these beautiful blues and reds and different colours and tells the story of the three kings visiting the Christ child shortly after his birth. So stained glass windows have been used to tell stories throughout history, and you can see them in architectural spaces all over the world. And as the sunlight shines through them, the colours and shapes are kind of projected into whatever space that they're in. So that gave me a kind of idea that I wanted to use colour and shape to kind of tell some of my own stories. So that's what we're going to do today. So the first thing, I'm going to clear these materials out of the way, make sure you get a nice clear workspace. The first thing we're going to do is to create your window frame. So it's going to have two sides like this, and you'll see why later. So the first thing we're going to do is create your frame. So to do that, you're going to take your piece of cardstock. You want it to be in a rectangular shape because you're going to fold it in half to make a kind of square. You can make it any shape you want, really. But you don't want it any bigger than the plastic sandwich bag that I showed you earlier. And also you don't want it too big because we only want to use small amounts of the permanent marker and nail polish. So you're going to take your rectangle and you're going to fold it in half like this, so that you have a square about this size. And then once you've folded it in half, as I showed you, you're going to cut out your frame, the center of your frame. So you can see here, I've drawn the lines just to show you the safest way to cut out the center of your frame. And also to show you that you want these lines here to be about 1/2 inch thick. You don't want your frame to be too narrow. You want it to be a little wider so it can be nice and strong. So I'm going to cut along those lines. It's this kind of safest way to cut out the center of your frame. And you'll notice as you cut along these lines, it feels like the frame is going to be broken, but don't worry, because we're going to tape it back together so that you have a strong frame. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to put these bits to one side, don't need those. So you can see it looks like it's broken here, but what we're going to do is tape it back together. So you're going to open it up, lay it flat on the table, and I have lots of tape here kind of placed ahead of time along the side of the table just so it's easy to grab. Kind of line it back up and then place your tape to stick your frame back together. And you'll see you can place more than one piece of tape. You can see now I've got a nice strong frame again. So the next thing that you've got to do is cut out your plastic bag to fit inside your frame. So this is going to be your fake glass. And the important thing about this, when you get your plastic bag, is that you want to cut it, so I'm going to bring it a little closer here. You want to cut it so that your plastic bag is no larger than the outside of your frame, because you don't want plastic hanging out the edge, and also no smaller than the inside of your frame, because you don't want big holes. So you want to make it so that it lines up about in the middle of the frame, like this. So I'm going to skip ahead a step. Once you've cut out your plastic bag to the right size, you'll have a square piece of plastic like this. And then you're going to open up your frame, and this is when you're going to lay it on the inside, and you're going to tape the four corners of your plastic bag in place. I'm taping the corners just so that I can get it in place, but then you can go and add more tape around the edges once you've got the four corners. It's important to try and make it nice and flat so you don't have wrinkles in your window, like so. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to place just a little extra tape along the edges to make it secure. There we go. You could even do more, but for the sake of time I'm going to stop. So now I have my glass inside my frame, like so. And this is when you're ready to start thinking about your designs. So since we're using nail polishes and permanent markers, once you put them down, you can't erase them like you can pencils. So if you want to take a small piece of paper and sketch out a design first, that would be good. Or if you want to dive straight in there, that's also okay, because even if you make a mistake, the beauty in art is that you can turn a mistake into something beautiful, and sometimes the unexpected can be the best pieces of work. So feel free to do whichever way you want to. I'm going to show you some of the things that I made. I was thinking about what story do I want to tell, what shapes and colours do I want to use. And I was thinking a lot about nature when I started this project. I thought about how the sun comes through stained glass window and how nature, it plays with stained glass windows. So I actually kind of made a kind of landscape. I used circular shapes to represent the moon or the sun, and added in colours to represent kind of rolling hills and fields, things like that. I'm almost using dots to create stars or parts of the sky. Use different textures. So this one I made with nail polish, but I also made an abstract piece, so just using shapes and lines, using only the permanent marker. So you can see here, you can also do amazing things just using the permanent markers. And even if you only have the black permanent marker, as I mentioned, you can still make something great. I made a smaller stained glass window just by layering lines and dots to create different textures, just using black permanent marker like that. So feel free to use any of those materials. I'm today going to show you using both the permanent marker and the nail polish. So I'm going to start with my permanent marker, and as I said, I'm kind of thinking about nature right now, so I'm just going to draw a simple circle, almost to represent like the sun or the moon, something like that. And then I'm going to take my nail polish, and just as if you were painting your nails, you'd want to wipe off the excess, because you don't want big globs or pools of the nail polish on your plastic. You just want little bits. So I'm going to wipe off all the excess off my brush like that, and I'm going to do just little marks to start with. I'm not going to try and paint big areas of my window or my plastic. And you see how each time I'm wiping the excess off my brush, I'm just doing little marks. And you can see it coming together like this. So you can see I've started to get some shapes and colours on there. And then I'll start to add some other colours. Some nail polishes kind of have an iridescent effect or a shiny effect, and you can play around with that. So this one's silver, like so. There we go. And you can see how you start to kind of get some textures. But I'm only using little bits at a time, you know, just little bits of the nail polish at a time. And also you can also add in shapes and colours using the permanent marker, you know. Can start to add in some shapes along the top here. So you can see, you can already start to get some different effects, like so. Once you're finished with your design, you're going to need to leave it to dry. So I'm going to put this off to the side, you know, for an hour or so and leave it to dry. So when your artwork is dry, when your composition is dry, I'm going to use one that I made earlier. This is dry now. You can do one of two things. You can either leave the back open like this, and then you can prop it up around the house and put it in different places, or you can close it and glue the back together so you have a kind of flat window. You're going to open up and you're going to place glue along the inside of the frame like so. You can also use the tape if you don't have a glue stick. You can also use the tape to stick this closed. I like to do it this way instead of leaving it open for two reasons. One, this makes my frame kind of stronger, so you can see now it's a little stronger. But also it means I can now install this in a window. So as I mentioned, when the sun comes in with stained glass windows, they make beautiful effects with light and colour. So you can actually place your stained glass window on a windowsill, or even, you know, use a small piece of tape to tape it to the inside of the window. And then when the sun comes in, the idea is that it will project beautiful colours and shapes onto your windowsill or even onto a wall. So when you've finished your artwork, we also would love to see it. So get an adult to post a photograph of your stained glass window to social media and then tag it at LACMA. It's been great making art with you, and I hope you keep making beautiful things at home. Thanks. Bye-bye.